Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you are watching the LockerGnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short, your daily dose of geek news, product views, and answers that you can use. At least I hope you could use them, and you know what I could use? At least 7 more patrons. We are this close to 500 patrons already. I can't believe it. And at this clip, we may hit 1,000 patrons by the time I turn 41, which is in a few months. Okay, I didn't mean to depress myself there. But you know what would make me happy? If we could hit this within the next day. So if you really appreciate the kind of content that I might be doing for you, not just here, but pretty much anywhere, please consider becoming a patron. You can head over to chrispirillo.com for more information. Let me go ahead and flip through the list automatically. This nice little slideshow to thank everybody who needs to be thanked at this very moment. What is my... What? Oh, someone was yelling downstairs. My parents are still staying with me. What was going on?
What are you, a light bulb?
I'm not a light bulb, but...
You said what?
My dad is bringing the sarcasm today, for those of you who might have been wondering. We do have people who have tuned in live. Hopefully you guys can see everything and hear everything okay. No technical difficulties. Though I do have to tell you, and I do not expect any technical difficulties this coming week, I'm heading off to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, tomorrow. That's in San Francisco, and we are going to be doing a meetup, if you guys can join us there. Very briefly, we hope to be able to get together with you in San Francisco. It'll be right before I do my, I guess what would you call it? It's a panel discussion I'm moderating for Intel. You know, ding, 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 ding. That's my version of their jingle. I'm going to be doing that for them. And before I do that at GDC, I'll be doing something outside of GDC, potentially with you. I've got a link for where you can get more information about the SF Meetup in the video's description. It's my wife Diana's first time in San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco for a very brief time. Obviously, do not anymore. Or if it wasn't obvious to you, it's true. I live in Seattle now, and I'm very happy up here. But returning to the Bay Area should be fun as well. I've been back a few times since moving away. I like San Francisco. No problem with San Francisco. We will see if San Francisco has more geeks in our community than London. Right now, London is #1 in terms of Pirillo meetups. We had almost 100 people show up. I was so happy about that, and still have every intention on bringing VloggerFair to London. That being said, we're still working on putting VloggerFair together August 16th in Seattle. If you do want to meet me in real life, you want to travel here and see a few other bigger vloggers, because most people on YouTube are bigger than me. And I'm fine with that. And I don't mean physically. I mean, they got like millions of subscribers. And I'm very lucky to have 350,000 people who appreciate the daily vlog. This is our new YouTube channel, Geek Lifestyles, being powered by you. And when I talk about patrons, it's not just those people who are supporting us. We are also very lucky to have sponsors like GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. That sounded weird. Let me try that again. This broadcast was brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix, the powerfully simple way to meet online. You can share the same screen and see each other in HD video conferencing. Start hosting a GoToMeeting in seconds from your computer or mobile device by signing up for a free 30-day trial. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code Pirillo. And if you want to do that, you can. In fact, you should. I'll be giving away a 30-minute GoToMeeting with me. And more details about that are coming up again in our Friday live broadcast. We're broadcasting live every day, again, thanks to the support of patrons and various sponsors. I do have to point this out. Quite a nice tweet we received this morning. I mentioned Colleen last week. Want to give her credit again, at ColleenJ77, who purchased something from the online LockerGnome shop. She got a stand-up Sheldon. We're selling all sorts of geek lifestyle stuff over there, shop.lockergnome.com. She said, hey, Chris Pirillo, LockerGnome, fast delivery, exactly what I ordered. Love the autographed card, too, because she got my autograph. You want my autograph, just order something. She will purchase again, and there's a photo. The only problem I have with this image of Sheldon is that he's in my spot. My dad just started watching The Big Bang Theory. He likes it. But he may not get that reference. I don't know if Colleen's dog is very happy about Sheldon standing there. Still, I'm very happy to highlight Colleen's purchase here because she shared it with the world. I retweeted it, replied, showed it here in this video. Thank you for believing in the Pirillo promise and taking us up on that offer. A few things to cover in the news. I have some bits of information that I held over from last week since we kind of ran long on the broadcast. Didn't mean to, but I don't think anybody really minds this. Someone's reminding. Thank you, William Reister. Like Peeps. I don't like Peeps unless you're people Peeps. The marshmallow Peeps, I'm not a fan of. I'm a fan of you if you're a Peep. If I can call you a Peep. Thank you for remembering to like, comment, share, subscribe, and of course watch more videos. Now, getting into the nitty-gritty, the biggest piece of news just was not exactly announced, but released by a very reliable source, and certainly on a reliable platform. I'm always watching for news, and I really appreciate when you guys pass this along. This happened to float across my radar from Twitter. Tom Warren over there, who is a long-time, how do I say this, pundit. I trust a lot of the information that he shares. Tom really knows his stuff. I remember him from the days of NeoWin. Not many people remember NeoWin. I do. Office for iPad is possibly coming on March 27th. I think this is not final news, but it comes on the heels of an announcement that Microsoft also made today with the OneNote Reboot. If you head over to OneNote.com, you'll be greeted with this site. And you can see that you can now use OneNote on a variety of platforms, including OS X. That is brand new. They've got iOS versions. Let's see here. Windows Store, of course, Windows Phone, naturally, Mac, iPad, iPhone, Android, and web. So OneNote is becoming universal, as well it should be, if only to take on Evernote directly, not to be confused with OneNote. And I think Microsoft is taking the right steps. Whether or not OneNote is better than Evernote, it's for you to decide. I was also very happy to see that OneNote now supports a service called If This Then That. I've talked about it before for years, ever since I found out about it. IFTTT.com is awesome. I love If This Then That. There are very few other web services that I rave about, and that is absolutely one of them because it works so well. And I've said that from the beginning. So, Office for iPad. Interesting. I think it's good to see today. And I mean today as in, this time in our existence on this planet today, this general range, as opposed to really kind of needing it a year ago. And I'm not saying I needed Office for iPad a year ago, but the longer Microsoft holds out in opening up its services and its brand, to platforms that really aren't driven by Microsoft, I think the more it will hurt Microsoft, not just in the short run, but certainly in the long run. I just launched a few minutes ago Microsoft Office, or actually it was Word on OS X. There was a suggestion, as I made last week, that a new version of Office for the OS X desktop would be released, certainly to compete with, not a lot of other software on the Mac desktop in terms of Office productivity. You've got, OpenOffice or LibreOffice. You've got the iWork suite, which is, probably more universal than it used to be, with a web version of iWork as well as the desktop and iOS versions of iWork. But still, I would say somewhat limited in terms of its addressing the marketplace. Apple tends to create services and software for its platforms. That's the way Microsoft used to be, but in order for Microsoft to grow, they need to extend. I needed to print off this particular document, and it was in a Word document format. Hit print. That's the only reason I seem to open Office. So I'm not excited. I'm interested in a loose way for what Office for iPad might be. It would more than likely be tied into an Office 365 subscription, which at this point I do not have. I'm not to say it would be overpriced. If you use Office and you use Word and Excel and PowerPoint, you're going to need an Office 365 subscription. And it could be, affordable in the grand scheme of things. I mean, you may not be happy about paying $70 a year to have it work on a tablet and a traditional desktop or laptop computer. I don't want to say too little too late, because I'm sure it's enough of an Office suite on an iPad if it is to actually be released here in the next few weeks. I think it's good to see it. Well, Wicket, we know. He just wanted to let you... Yes! He uses Google Drive, much like his father. I use Google Drive almost exclusively for document collaboration. In fact, I just created a new Google Doc Yeah, minutes before the broadcast. So I tend to go to Google Docs for my office stuff. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And there's really no good or effective way or awesome way, I think, of using Google Drive from iOS right now. I mean, you can, but it's kind of slow. It's a bit cumbersome. I wish Google would double down on that. Even on Android, it's not a fantastic experience. Maybe Microsoft can trump them. So it'll be interesting to see Office for the iPad. My question for you, and let's just assume that you would have an Office 365 subscription. Are you interested in Office for iPad? Microsoft Office for iPad? If so, why? And granted, okay, you have to be an iPad user or an iOS user. Are you interested at all? And if you are, why? And if you're not, why not? I don't know if this would get me to buy an Office 365 subscription, because I don't know if I'd still be able to take advantage of it. I mean, maybe at the point where, I could use the iOS version, the web version, the desktop version. I would just write it off as a business expense. But I just don't want to be spending much more than $100 a year on software I barely want to use. It just doesn't make any sense. I even mentioned this last week. To me, and Microsoft's not going to go this route. At least I don't expect it to happen. To me, the price for Office, it may be worth $20 a year. Why? Well, because Google Drive is free. Because iWork is free. Why would I want to pay more for similar or similar enough functionality? Like I said, it's just Microsoft, they need to make this move, but I think they're going to hurt themselves even in releasing it. Unless it's just fantastically better and there's no indications one way or another whether it will be. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of editing documents like spreadsheets on an iPad. For presentations, you guys, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you can answer this question. For presentations, what do I use? That's right, Haiku Deck. Love Haiku Deck. It runs on iPad. There's a web version. It's all I need for 99% of my presentations. Love it. Easy, clean, effective. It is the best presentation software I have ever had the opportunity to use, and it's free. For documents, it's easy enough to open up notes. I mean, in fact, that's what I use to read off the notes that I do with TLDR with you guys every day. I don't need anything complex. I don't need anything fancy. So presentations are taken care of. If there's any, and documents are taken care of, either in Google Docs or simple notes. So what then about spreadsheets? Spreadsheets, are still tricky on the web. I haven't found a great spreadsheet app for the web. The desktop doesn't do amazingly well, but really the app to beat or program to beat is Excel for as far as spreadsheets are concerned today. That said, most of my spreadsheets are in Google Drive and likely will continue to be that way. I mean, it's on the web, it's easy to get to, it's easy enough to edit, and I don't need any fancy functions. Usually I need sum or average. Or something simple and compatible. I mean, or I'm using it to sort information in I guess I can say this because I'm white trash database. I'm not white trash. Not to offend any white trash out there. I'm sure I did. I didn't mean to. But I'm just saying that the spreadsheet works for more than just mathematical functions. I use it to organize data sometimes when it's just simple and straightforward to use in that capacity. Google Drive is great for my business, so says Max3099 in the live stream comments thread. Yes, a cursor option would be an amazing feature for iOS, says Adam Old. Wait, hang on. Let me see if I get your name right. Oldicker? I don't know if I'd appreciate a cursor function. A cursor is kind of a legacy function that's kind of held over from the mouse or a touchpad. And when the entire surface is your interactive surface, not to be confused with a Microsoft Surface. I'm talking about an actual glass surface that you might use. You don't need a cursor. What's the reason to have a cursor? Zero. You don't need to be reminded where your pointer is because your pointer is your finger. Wherever you place it, that's where the cursor is. So I don't know if I would agree with you on that front. Unless you're thinking that it could help improve the usability of spreadsheets on a tablet or a smartphone. I don't know. Ryan Bragg says, I use Office 2013 in Google Docs. Sometimes iWorks on the iPad. So, Ryan, you're probably a lot like me. I live in a lot of different worlds. I try a lot of different things, and ultimately, I don't think about which software to go to necessarily. Sometimes it's just perfunctory. Like, I need to create a document to collaborate on, or just a document. I go to Google Drive. Don't even think about it. I don't even think about it. If I want to write notes for myself, it's usually on a Post-it like this. I'm sorry, that's a name brand. A yellow sticky like this. And then I take care of it because it's sitting on my desk and that annoys me. If I want to use notes and get to them easily from pretty much everywhere I am, I usually use the Notes app on iOS. So, I'm much like yourself. I try a variety of things. iWork is usually last on the list. Office is there for printing compatibility or viewing compatibility, and that's about it. But Google Drive, I would say, is my primary, Office suite. And I'm spending a lot of time on this, if only because I think that's what the title of this TLDR broadcast is going to be about, or centric to, because I have a few other things that I definitely wanted to cover. But, it's a big deal. This is a pillar for Microsoft, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how people, adapt to it. And I don't know if they will. I don't know if people are going to necessarily go out and get an Office 365 subscription now because Office for iPad would become available. It's a big question mark that may have very little payoff for Microsoft. I don't know if it's going to sell anymore, especially at the price points. $65, free, how much do you need? How much do you want? I don't know. At that stage, I'm like, I don't use it I'm not a power user. My business is not contingent on a Microsoft platform. Other than I use Exchange. I have an Exchange server that I use email from, and I've been using that for almost a decade now. Very, very happy with Exchange. I don't know if I'd trust email to any other system at this stage. Some people love Gmail. Hey, knock yourselves out. I say that a lot. Don't knock yourself out physically. Don't do that. I'm not condoning that at all. Pew Research has announced that technology users are generally library users. I have not been into a library for years. Or at least, for needing to check out or wanting to check out a book. There's only one book recently that I learned about that I really would like to get, although I don't know if I have a lot of time to digest it. Written by Dana Boyd, probably one of the most intelligent people that I know, and I have actually met her in real life. She wrote a book called It's Complicated, talking about how teens are using social media and why social and these apps work well for teens. And we're talking like Snapchat, Facebook, the world that I may not understand as a 40-year-old. I would like to read it, if only to get her perspective, because I know that a good portion of my audience, my community out there, happen to be teenagers. There's a good chunk that aren't teenagers, too. But I would like to, at least look at it from an analytical standpoint, if only to gain a little more insight and consider that as I continue to roll forward with the things that I'm doing, offline or online. Zuckerberg, that would be Mark Zuckerberg, called Obama last week to express his frustration over the NSA. And you've got it bad when Facebook, not exactly the number one holder for retaining your privacy, calls you out on violating privacy. That's bad. That you don't want to ever be on the other end of that phone call. I think Facebook does a decent job. They've certainly improved over time and will continue to improve. And I think they've made the right moves over time, at least for what Facebook wants to be. But if Zuckerberg's saying that the NSA has gone too far, he's not wrong. The NSA just seems to be getting itself into more and more trouble. The biggest issue isn't that the NSA is doing what it's doing necessarily, because, hey, it's going to do it, right? It's the level of transparency. And that, to me, that's the key. That's absolutely key. Facebook gives you granular control, or at least as much as they can, offer. Or if they change something, they tell you. It may not be easy to figure out how to unfix, but Facebook is transparent. Or I'll go a step further, or actually take a step sideways or backwards. Okay, Facebook does a better job with transparency than the government does. At every level. And to me, this is what every government needs to learn. And I don't care if it's the US government, UK government, I don't care if it's Canada, I don't care if whoever. Transparency. Without transparency, what do we have? Secrecy. And secrecy is not necessarily all good all the time. Now, I'm not just sitting here saying, well, everything should be out in the open and let's open source everything. My concern is we find ourselves in situations where a voting machine is controlled by proprietary software that no one can analyze. No one knows whether or not a vote has counted or not. There's no way of checking to see whether or not your vote counted. There's no levels of transparency. Do I have the solution? I'm not an analytic or an analytical wonk. I'm not an analyst. I'm not someone who understands the politics of government. But I can tell you that the reason every government finds itself at war with its citizens is largely, I mean, forget policy for a second, it's transparency. You know, and we can add 2 and 2 and usually come up with 4. We talked about it last week in an example, just one example, and it's not a direct correlation, but I talked about how Tesla is no longer allowed to sell its cars in New Jersey because it doesn't have a dealership. Well, Elon Musk ended up blogging about this, basically calling out Christine, and said, well, your governor there in New Jersey basically took money and was paid off by dealerships to keep Tesla out. It's very anti-competitive. Elon's right. He's absolutely right. What else could it be other than someone with a bigger pocketbook spending more money on an elected government official? Sorry, swear to God, I do not have an invisible tinfoil hat on, all right? Am I saying that every government is corrupt? No, I'm not talking about corruption. What I'm talking about is transparency. Enough of having people have to whistle blow to make the government more transparent. That's all we're asking. That's it. We love the government for what it does, for what it can do. But what we ask and why the government's going to get in trouble, every government's going to get in trouble over and over again, is because of lack of transparency. Same thing with companies. When you lack that transparency, you cause fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I'm not saying that everything has to be in the open, but I'm saying that transparency is going to be one of the biggest issues we are going to face in this global society. Because let's face it, I'm sitting here in America, in Seattle, and you may be on the other side of the world, but we share this common interest, and maybe not be talking about government and politics, and I'm not speaking about that directly. But when technology is involved and is used against us, and there's no transparency in the process, that's a big issue. That's a huge issue. Just tell me, that's all. I have a big issue with companies who use my information without my permission. I don't like that. Give me the opportunity to opt out. Like junk mail. I mean, I've used Paper Karma for years to try to opt out of every piece of junk mail I can possibly get. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for the email. I didn't ask for the printed email. I just want out. I said, if you want my attention and this, let me give you the permission. Let me know what you, Company X, are doing. And what they'll do is they'll hire a legal team that'll, print out, or give you a printout of 40 pages that they'll send you. And you can't, who can read that? The end user license agreement or terms of service or change in a privacy policy. Here's the privacy policy I want. If I have a relationship with you, that's all I want. I just want a relationship with you as an entity, as a company. Beyond that, you just ask me every time someone else wants my information. Let me control my information. Let me control what I have and give it to you. Let the user be in control instead of the vendor. Sorry, I'm going off on a tear, going well beyond where I wanted to go here. I'm sure I've upset half the world now too. Sorry. Well, if you don't want transparency, you're definitely living in an old world. I'm not saying everything has to be open, but I think they need to make great strides if we expect to continue as humanity down this path of this global society. And I hate to tell you, but we're a global society. There are nuances here, there, and everywhere, mutually assured destructions, but the chances of us snapping back the other direction, I think, is impossible. And I think the internet helps make that a possibility, which is good and bad. Good and bad. But I don't see it happen. I don't see it reversing itself at any point in the future. It's global. If you don't believe me, tell me what country you're in. What country are you in? Have you ever been restricted to see something or to interact with something because of a country you lived in? And what if you lived on the border of another country that had opportunities that you could easily have, right? And we're going really down the rabbit hole talking about media licensing, right? What does it matter what country you're in to watch a movie? You want to watch a movie? You should be able to watch the movie. Or a TV show. Let's say the movie just costs $1, right? If you have $1 to spend and you want to watch the movie, why should you not be able to watch the movie? I do not, my tiny brain cannot understand why. I mean, I get it. These dinosaur business models and, outmoded structures of media distribution make it impossible because they have the money. So, yay to independent media, and putting it out there and letting the fans control their direction. And I it's getting easier and easier and easier as time goes on. But, okay, I'm going down another rabbit hole. I'm pulling myself out. Speaking of changes and monoliths, eMarketer came out with research or a study that desktop search is set to decline $1.4 billion as Google users shift to mobile. I think Dad even asked, I mentioned this in the car, I think, the other day, and my dad, who's sitting on the other side of the camera, he said, well, how would people Google things? How would people find things? I'm like, well, they use apps. If I, could look for something or find something without going through Google, fine. I don't care. Sometimes I'll ask Siri. Very rarely will it respond the way I want it to respond, although I did tweet out something or posted something in social earlier today. I took a screenshot of this. It's got a dirty word in it, so you'll have to look it up in my account. But I got a lot of retweets on it. I was surprised that Siri works. It doesn't always work. But, I have apps to give me information and access to knowledge. And specific apps, right? I don't need to go to the web anymore or to go to Google to find something as much anymore. I still do, but more and more people are relying on apps. Google stands to lose a lot of money. Why do you think Google's okay with putting its apps on other platforms like iOS? They don't care how you get to Google as long as you get to Google. They don't care. So, yay, that's going to cause some feathers to be ruffled. $1.4 billion. And that will continue to increase as more and more people use apps or go directly to the source. You don't need to go to Google to find me. You know where to find me in the various social platforms. The other thing I was going to note when I held up the iOS device, I just recorded my What's on My iPhone video for this year, gave it to the patrons. When we hit 500 patrons, I'll release it to the wild. Although I'm not thrilled about how I did it, I may actually re-record it before I make it public. Depends on the feedback that the patrons give me. So, now that I've babbled for about a half hour, let me make sure I can get to everything that I needed or would like to get to, and then I may push, the other articles or bits of news out a little bit. If you want to go on a diet, the easiest way to do it is with the world's easiest diet kit. Look at that. Look at that spoon. Is that not the perfect diet spoon? And look at that fork. The tines are cut short. You will eat less because you'll be able to stab less. If you want the world's easiest diet kit, we've got a link for you in the video's description. Great little gag gift. Fun thing. We posted it on LockerGnome.com on Friday. The world's easiest diet kit, helping you laugh the pounds away, unless, of course, you don't find it funny. My dad giggled, so I'm assuming it's funny. The Lego Doctor Who series on Kusu is now at 10,000 supporters. I am one of them. So it's going to officially enter its review phase. I'm very happy about this. These are the minifigures. If only for the minifigures, you know me. And look at that, a weeping angel. Don't look. Don't blink. Sorry, I said don't look. I meant don't blink. Don't blink. So hopefully we'll see that come true, and I think we will, because Lego's got to know that Whovians would want an official Lego Doctor Who set. There have been brick sets around the Doctor Who brand, but to me it's Lego and then everything else at this stage. It just needed 10,000 to actually enter a review phase, and I think it happened really quickly because Doctor Who was on the list of sets that it would never, Lego Kusu would never push through. They would never go up for a review. And Lego recently lifted that. So that tells me that one of the first Doctor Who sets to go through Kusu would likely get produced. So we'll see what happens. I would expect it to happen with a TARDIS, some Doctor Who minifigures, and I would be happy. That's all I'm looking for. Doctor Who. David Tennant. He's my doctor. That's my doctor. I don't know about anybody else. Another set that just went through 10,000 supporters is The Big Bang Theory. That is now also up for voting. I would like to see both of them produced, and I think each one of them would do fantastically well. Know your audience. Geeks are into Lego. They just are. I very rarely have I run into a true nerd who did not like Lego bricks, other than, people who aren't true nerds, so to speak. Because it's creative, and it's geeky, and it's fun, and it's toys, and it's science-y and sci-fi-ish, because, sci-fi stuff like Star Wars or, any of the sets that Lego might have, it's a growing brand. I mean, I just love it. I live in the world of Lego, and I think many people who know me know that very well. Maybe one more bit of news, and then I'll push off the rest for tomorrow, because I wouldn't say that many of them at this stage are, I need to tell you about today, or want to tell you about today. Surface 2 getting LTE at $679. If you're interested in the Surface 2, a blip on the radar. I kind of sarcastically said earlier, this changes everything. I don't think the Surface 2 getting LTE is going to change anything. It's another option. I don't think the Surface 2 is going to sell any more. It's not going to sell any less, but I don't think this was not Surface 2's biggest problem. The only other thing I wanted to say today, or should say today, Microsoft and Google have both decided that they don't like Intel's plan for dual OS tablets, and we talked about the phone that would run Android and Windows Phone on the same device. Well, apparently Asus is backing out of the dual boot Transformer Book Duet. It's now canceled. So if you were hoping to dual boot between the OSs, Microsoft doesn't like that. Google doesn't like that. Gee, I wonder why. Well, Asus doesn't want to piss off their vendors or relationships, because if they're giving them the opportunity to license the operating system for the product, Asus sells products that run Android and or Microsoft operating system. So that's sad news for those who want to dual boot. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and hopefully you appreciated everything that I had to share with you today. You may agree, you may disagree, but hey, these are my thoughts, these are my opinions. This is the one thing that I have that's unique. It's my perspective, sharing it with you. Thanks again to all the patrons who have come out in support of TLDR. I'll be doing the live broadcast tomorrow at a slightly different time, which really only impacts the people who are able to watch it live, the patrons, because I'm going to be traveling. My parents are going to be staying here in the house. I'm very grateful they're here. They'll be watching the house, watching the dogs, making sure. You're not going to party, are you?
No.
Good. My parents, Mom's going to party. I did not know that. Maybe I don't want to go to San Francisco now. You don't want to see Mom party. She starts gardening and it's all out of control. It's all fun and games till someone gets weeded. So thank you again for your support. Thank you for continuing to be who you are. Thank you for remembering to like, comment, share, subscribe, and watch even more of our videos right now. So at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. We'll see you later.